You're in danger. That man by the pillar, he's here to kill you. Don't scream, don't run. Just take my hand and pretend you're my wife. You have 10 seconds to decide if you want to live." Maya Chen's heart stopped. The emerald silk suddenly felt like a shroud against her skin. The stranger's breath was warm against her ear, his hand possessive on her waist, pulling her close like they'd done this 1,000 times before. She'd never seen this man before tonight. Didn't know his voice. Didn't know why his expensive cologne smelled like cedar and gunpowder. Didn't know why every survival instinct she had was screaming two opposite commands: run and stay. 9 seconds, he whispered. Choose. The Chicago ballroom stretched before them, a glittering trap of crystal chandeliers and champagne towers, each bubble rising like a tiny scream she couldn't release. 300 people in designer armor, circling each other with predatory grace. Maya didn't belong here among the diamond chokers and the old money smiles, but that was exactly the point. 8 seconds. He's moving toward you. No one would suspect the woman in the borrowed dress and cheap heels of being anything more than another ambitious nobody clawing for relevance. Special Agent Cordero had promised her that, had sworn she'd be invisible until the moment she planted the tracking device on her target. Cordero had lied about a lot of things. 7 seconds, Maya. Her name on his lips made her blood freeze. How does he know my name? The air reeked of expensive perfume and older money. Somewhere a jazz quartet played something sultry, notes weaving through conversations she couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. Maya's fingers found the silver locket at her throat. Elijah's locket, the last thing she had of her twin brother. 6 seconds, look at me. Smile like you love me. 8 months. It had been 8 months since they'd pulled Elijah's body from Lake Michigan. 8 months of pretending to grieve while secretly planning this moment. 8 months of letting Cordero mold her into whatever weapon he needed. And now a stranger was telling her she was about to die. 5 seconds. He has his hand on his gun. Maya's training kicked in through the shock. She forced her lips into something resembling a smile, her hand coming up to rest against the stranger's chest. Beneath the expensive fabric, his heartbeat was steady, controlled, like men who killed for a living. She tilted her head up to look at him. Oh, God. Sharp jawline, slicked back dark hair, a fitted black suit that looked like it cost more than her entire year's rent. But it was the tattoos creeping up his neck that made her stomach drop. Intricate designs of serpents and thorns disappearing beneath his collar like secrets written on skin. Dante Moretti. No. No. This was her target, the man she'd come here to destroy, the mobster whose organization was responsible for countless deaths, possibly, probably, including Elijah's. 4 seconds. His dark eyes bored into hers with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. I know why you're here. I know what you're carrying. And I know that if you don't trust me right now, they're going to find your body in the lake just like they found your brother's. The words hit her like a physical blow. 3 seconds. Decide, Maya. Live or die. Her mind screamed at her to run, to fight, to do anything except trust the monster in the expensive suit. But her body was already moving, already leaning into him like she'd made a choice her brain hadn't caught up to yet. 2 seconds. Maya's fingers curled into his lapel. If you're lying, I'm not. His hand slid from her waist to cradle the back of her head, pulling her closer until her face was buried against his neck. To anyone watching, they looked like lovers reuniting, like a husband greeting his wife after too long apart. 1 second, here he comes. Then get me out of here. Before we dive deeper into this tale of dangerous devotion and lethal secrets, drop a comment telling me where in the world you're tuning in from and smash that subscribe button to join our family. Your support brought us to 7,000 subscribers. You made this possible. Now brace yourself. You're about to witness the most dangerous, intoxicating night of Maya Chen's life. The noise of the party faded to static as Dante's lips brushed against her temple, a gesture so tender it felt obscene coming from a killer. Laugh, he commanded softly, like I just said something charming. Maya forced out a sound that might have passed for laughter if the listener wasn't paying attention. Her pulse thundered so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. Good girl. Now we're going to walk toward the terrace. Slow, natural. Keep smiling." His hand remained on her waist as he guided her through the crowd. Firm but not painful, commanding but strangely protective. Maya could feel every point of contact between them like brands against her skin. This close, she could see the individual threads of his expensive suit, could smell cedar and whiskey beneath the cologne. This close, she could see the tattoo on his neck wasn't just decorative. It was a serpent coiled around thorns, its fangs bared, beautiful and lethal, like the man himself. "Who is he?" Maya whispered, not daring to look back. "The man in gray. Someone who shouldn't be here. Someone who definitely shouldn't be watching you." Dante's voice was low, intimate by necessity. The crowd parted around them, naturally, instinctively, the way prey gives space to a predator. "Did your FBI handler mention anything about backup tonight?" Her blood turned to ice. "How do you—" "Later. Right now, just keep walking." They were 20 feet from the terrace doors when Maya heard it, a voice calling out behind them, sharp, commanding, wrong. "Excuse me, sir, I need to speak with that young lady." Dante's grip on her waist tightened fractionally. Not painfully, but with unmistakable authority. "Don't stop. Don't look back." "But he's not FBI, not police, not anyone you want to meet." His thumb traced a slow, deliberate circle against her hip. The gesture would look affectionate to observers, but Maya felt the tension coiled in his muscles, felt the predatory alertness even as he played the role of devoted spouse. 3 more steps, 2, 1. They burst through the terrace doors into Chicago's November cold. The night air hit Maya like a slap, stealing her breath. The terrace was empty, too cold for the other guests, too exposed. Below them, the city sprawled in a glittering sprawl of lights and shadows. "This way." Dante pulled her toward a service entrance half hidden behind decorative planters. "We have about 60 seconds before—" The terrace doors exploded open behind them. Maya spun around and finally saw him, the man in gray, silver hair, cold eyes, a face that looked like it had been carved from marble and malice. He wasn't running. Predators don't run, but he was moving with terrifying purpose, and his gun was drawn. Down, Dante shoved Maya behind a concrete pillar as the first shot rang out. The bullet hit stone inches from her head, sending chips of concrete flying. Her scream caught in her throat as Dante returned fire. When had he drawn his weapon? 3 precise shots that sent the gray-suited man diving for cover. "Go!" Dante barked. "Service entrance! Now!" Maya's legs moved on autopilot, her journalist's brain frantically trying to process what was happening. Someone was shooting at her. Dante Moretti was protecting her. Nothing made sense. Everything was wrong. She hit the service entrance at full speed, Dante right behind her. The door slammed shut, and he immediately shoved a nearby supply cart in front of it. "That'll buy us 30 seconds, maybe." He grabbed her hand, his grip strong and sure, and pulled her down a stark white hallway that smelled of industrial cleaner and fear. "Can you run in those heels? Can I—" Another gunshot, muffled by the door but still too close. "Yes!" They ran. Behind them, Maya heard shouting, the crash of the door being forced, rapid footsteps that meant more than one person was chasing them now. "Who are these people?" she gasped. "Later. Turn left here." The hallway branched. Dante moved with the confidence of a man who'd mapped every exit long before arriving. His hand never left hers as he pulled her through a maze of service corridors, past confused catering staff, around corners, down a flight of stairs that made Maya's cheap heels feel like instruments of torture. "Why are you helping me?" The question burst out between gasping breaths. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Dante's voice was grim. He yanked her into an alcove as more footsteps pounded past. They stood frozen, his body shielding hers from view. "I know your brother came to me 2 days before he died. I know he asked for my help exposing corruption in the FBI, and I know I failed him." Maya's world tilted sideways. "What?" "I know I let him walk into a trap because I was too careful, too slow, too fucking paranoid to act fast enough." Dante's dark eyes met hers in the dim alcove, and for the first time, she saw something raw beneath the controlled exterior. Grief, guilt, rage. And I know I made him a promise that if anything happened to him, I'd protect his sister. Tears burned Maya's eyes. Elijah knew you? He knew what I am, what I've done, and he trusted me anyway. Dante's jaw tightened. I won't fail him twice. The footsteps had faded. Dante pulled her from the alcove and down another corridor. At the end was a heavy metal door marked Loading Dock. My car is waiting. Black sedan, tinted windows. He pushed the door open carefully, checking for threats. Once we're inside, I'll explain everything, but right now, Maya, I need you to make a choice. Cold November air rushed in. Beyond the loading dock, she could see a sleek black car, engine running, waiting like a predator itself. You can come with me, hear the truth about how your brother died, and maybe survive long enough to get justice. Dante's hand tightened on hers. Or you can go back to Agent Cordero, tell him what happened, and wait for whoever sent that gray-suited man to finish what they started tonight. Maya looked at the car, then back at the man holding her hand. A mobster, a killer, someone who claimed to have known her brother, someone who just saved her life, someone who might be the only person telling her the truth. Behind them, she heard the service door crash open. Shouts, running feet. They found us. Decide, Dante said urgently. Right now. Maya thought of Elijah's locket around her neck, thought of his last text 3 days before he died. Gabby, if something happens to me, don't trust the official story. Don't trust anyone. Find the truth yourself. Maybe the truth was in that car. Maybe the truth was in the desperate grip of a dangerous man who claimed her brother had trusted him. Let's go. They ran for the car together. Dante yanked open the door and practically threw Maya inside before diving in after her. The driver, Maya caught a glimpse of a scarred face and cold eyes, hit the gas before their doors even closed. The sedan peeled out of the loading dock with a screech of tires. Through the back window, Maya saw figures pour out onto the dock behind them, saw muzzle flashes, heard bullets ping off metal. Then they turned a corner and the hotel disappeared from view. Maya pressed against the leather seat, her heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. Her dress was torn. Her hair had come loose from its pins. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to make it stop. Dante sat beside her, calm as death, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "What the hell was that?" Maya's voice came out thin and scared. "Who were those people? Why were they shooting at me?" "Because someone wants you dead." Dante's gaze was steady, assessing. He slid his gun back into a shoulder holster she hadn't noticed beneath his jacket. "Same someone who killed your brother. Same someone who's been using you as bait for the penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan like a throne overlooking a graveyard. Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights reflect off the black water where they'd found Elijah's body 8 months ago. The view should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like staring at a crime scene. Behind her, Dante moved through the space with quiet efficiency, checking locks, closing curtains, making the calls that people like him made when the night went wrong. The penthouse was all dark wood and darker leather, expensive but cold, like a showroom nobody actually lived in. "This isn't your home," Maya said without turning around. "No." Dante's reflection appeared in the glass beside hers. He'd shed his jacket, loosened his tie. The gun was still visible in his shoulder holster. Safe house. Somewhere to think when things get complicated. How often do things get complicated? More than I'd like. He moved to the kitchen, opening cabinets that revealed premium whiskey instead of food. He poured 2 glasses without asking. "You should sit. What I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. Just tell me who killed my brother." "Agent Marcus Cordero." The name landed like a fist to Maya's chest. She spun from the window, her reflection shattering into darkness. "That's impossible. Cordero came to me after the funeral. He offered to help me find justice. He's been training me for months." "He came to control you." Dante crossed to her, pressing the whiskey into her shaking hands. "To make sure you didn't ask the wrong questions or look in the wrong places. To turn you into an asset he could use or eliminate as needed." "You're lying." But even as Maya said it, she felt the foundation of the last 8 months cracking beneath her feet. Cordero is FBI. He's one of the good guys. Is he? Dante pulled out his phone, connected it to a screen on the wall. I'm going to show you something. Once you see it, there's no going back. You won't be able to unknow this. Maya's hands tightened on the glass. Show me. Dante pressed play. The footage was grainy security camera feed, black and white, time-stamped 8 months ago. Maya watched her brother appear on screen, alive and whole, his face animated as he spoke to someone just out of frame. Then the other figure moved into view, Agent Marcus Cordero. Maya's glass slipped from her nerveless fingers. It hit the hardwood with a dull thud, whiskey soaking into the expensive rug. But she couldn't look away from the screen, couldn't process what she was seeing. The video had no sound, but body language told the story. Elijah gesturing sharply, clearly refusing something. Cordero's face hardening, his hand moving to his hip. The argument escalating. Then Cordero drew his weapon. Turn it off, Maya whispered. Dante paused the footage, 1 frame before the trigger pulled, 1 second before everything ended. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know this isn't what you wanted to see. Maya couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 8 months of grief, of planning, of letting Cordero guide her toward this moment, all of it built on a lie. The man who'd held her at the funeral, who'd promised justice, who'd molded her into his perfect weapon. He'd murdered Elijah. The room spun. Maya's legs gave out. Suddenly Dante was there, catching her before she hit the ground, guiding her to the couch with careful hands. Why? The word came out broken, barely audible. Why would he kill Elijah? Your brother discovered something that couldn't be allowed to exist. Dante sat beside her, close enough to catch her if she fell again, far enough to give her space. Evidence of corruption that went all the way to the top. Names, dates, transactions. Proof that certain FBI agents had been selling information to organized crime for years. And Cordero was one of them. Cordero was the linchpin. He'd been feeding intel to Viktor Volkov for over a decade. Dante's voice was hollow, haunted. Witness locations, raid schedules, evidence collected during investigations. Your brother tracked the payments, followed the paper trail, and came to me with proof 2 days before he died. Maya's mind reeled. He came to you. Why would Elijah go to a mobster? Because everyone inside the system was compromised. He needed someone outside it, someone with resources and motivation to see Cordero burn. Dante's jaw tightened. I told him to wait, to let me verify what he was claiming, to make sure we weren't both walking into a trap. I told him to lie low, stay safe, and I'd have answers within the week. His hands clenched into fists. 3 days later, he was dead. You let him die. The accusation tore from Maya's throat. She launched herself at Dante, fists striking his chest with all the force of her anguish. He trusted you and you let him die. Dante didn't defend himself. He knelt there, absorbing every blow, his face carved from stone. Yes, he said simply. He came to you for help. Maya's voice rose to a scream, 8 months of held-back tears finally breaking free. You could have protected him. I know. And now he's dead because you weren't fast enough. Her strikes weakened, exhaustion replacing fury. Because you were too careful. I know. Dante caught her wrists gently as her arms dropped. I know, Maya. I've lived with that failure every day since. She collapsed against him, sobs tearing from her chest. All the tears she'd held back during the funeral, during the investigation, during the lonely months of planning revenge, they poured out now in a torrent she couldn't control. And Dante held her, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped around her waist, supporting her weight as she broke apart. I've got you, he murmured against her hair. I've got you. Time lost meaning. Maya cried until there was nothing left, until her throat was raw and her body felt like lead. Slowly, awareness returned. The solid warmth of Dante's body, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her cheek, the surprising gentleness of hands she knew were capable of violence. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen, her face blotchy. All her carefully maintained composure shattered. I don't know what to believe anymore, she whispered. Believe that your brother was trying to do the right thing. Dante's thumb brushed away tears on her cheeks with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Believe that he died a hero, and believe that I will do everything in my power to make sure his death wasn't meaningless. How? Maya's voice cracked. Cordero has the entire FBI behind him. Volkov has money, connections, power. What chance do we have? We use what your brother collected. We expose them both. Dante stood, offering his hand to help her up. But we have to be smart about it. Strategic. One wrong move and we're both dead. Maya let him pull her to her feet, though she swayed slightly, exhaustion making her clumsy. Where do we even start? Start by getting some rest. Dante guided her toward a hallway. There's a guest room. Everything you need is there. In the morning, we'll make a plan. She should protest, should demand more answers, more details. But her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, her mind fogged with shock and grief. The guest room was simple but comfortable. White sheets, soft pillows, blackout curtains. Maya stood in the doorway, suddenly aware of how alone she was, how far from anything familiar. Dante lingered at the threshold, his expression unreadable. "Why are you doing this?" Maya asked. "Really? Why risk everything to help me?" For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face with devastating gentleness. "Because your brother reminded me of who I used to be," he said quietly. "Before this life claimed me. Before I became the thing everyone fears." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "And because you walked into that ballroom trying to find truth, that kind of courage deserves to be protected. That's not the whole answer. No." His smile was sad, self-aware. "The whole answer is that I've been looking for a reason to believe I'm more than the monster in the mirror. Your brother gave me that reason. Now you're offering me a chance to prove it." He stepped back, his hand falling away. "Get some rest, Maya. Tomorrow we start planning." He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut behind him. Maya stood in the center of the unfamiliar room, her reflection staring back at her from a mirror on the wall. She looked nothing like the confident journalist who'd walked into that gala. She looked like a woman who'd had her entire world upended, who'd learned that everything she believed was a carefully constructed lie. She looked like a woman at war. Good, she thought fiercely, pulling Elijah's locket from around her neck and clutching it tight. Because war is exactly what I'm about to wage. But first, she needed sleep. Needed to let her mind process the impossible truths Dante had revealed, needed to prepare for whatever came next. She collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, too exhausted to change. Sleep came surprisingly quickly, dragging her down into darkness. But her dreams were filled with surveillance footage, with Cordero's face, with the moment before the gun fired, with all the ways she should have seen the truth, with all the ways she'd failed. Maya woke to unfamiliar silence and the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then memory returned in fragments. The gala, the shooting, the surveillance footage. Elijah's face frozen in his final moments. She sat up, finding herself still in yesterday's torn dress. The clock on the nightstand read 6:47 a.m. She'd slept for barely 5 hours, but her body refused to stay still. Grief and rage were poor companions for rest. The coffee smell drew her from the room. She found Dante in the kitchen, dressed in dark jeans and a black t-shirt that revealed more of his tattoos. Intricate patterns wound down both arms like stories written in ink. He looked up as she entered, his expression careful, assessing. "Coffee?" "Please." He poured a second cup. Black, no sugar. How did he know? "You've been watching me," Maya said, not a question. "Since you started meeting with Cordero, I needed to understand who you were, what you knew." His honesty was disarming. "I needed to know if you were a threat or a victim." "And what did you decide?" "Both." His lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're dangerous because you ask the right questions, and you're in danger because of those same questions." Maya took a sip of coffee, using the moment to study him. In daylight, Dante looked younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, though the hardness in his eyes suggested someone much older. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure out what evidence your brother collected that was worth killing for." Dante moved around the counter, close enough that she could smell cedar and coffee. "You said Cordero gave you a flash drive to plant on me last night. Do you still have it?" Maya's hand went to her clutch, still sitting where she'd dropped it. She pulled out the small device. "This? It's supposed to be tracking software, or that's what Cordero told me." "May I?" She handed it over, watching as Dante examined it with practiced efficiency. He moved to a laptop, booted it up, plugged in the drive. His fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling past too fast for Maya to follow. "It's not tracking software," he said after a moment. "It's fabricated evidence. Financial records showing payments from me to various criminal enterprises. Weapons deals, drug trafficking, murder for hire." He turned to face her, his expression grave. "If you'd successfully planted this, it would have given the FBI everything they needed to. Arrest me." "But that was the point, wasn't it?" Maya's stomach clenched with understanding. "Except Cordero never expected me to succeed. He expected you to get caught or killed." Dante's voice gentled slightly. "Think about it. He sends you, an untrained civilian with no field experience, into a dangerous situation to plant evidence on one of the most cautious criminals in Chicago. What are the chances you'd succeed?" "None." The word came out hollow. "I was never meant to leave that gala alive. Either way, you'd be eliminated as a loose end, and Cordero would still have plausible deniability." Dante closed the laptop. "You were expendable. A problem he could solve while looking like he was pursuing justice." Maya's hands shook with rage. "Then why save me? Why not let it happen?" "Because your brother asked me to protect you." Dante's jaw tightened. 2 days before he died, we talked for 3 hours. He told me about his investigation, about the evidence he'd gathered, and he told me about his sister, the journalist who'd inspired him to chase truth in the first place, the twin who'd lost their father to corruption and refused to let injustice stand. Maya's throat closed. "He talked about Dad. He said you blamed yourself for not seeing the signs, that you'd spent years trying to prove your father's death wasn't an accident." Dante moved closer. "He said if anything happened to him, you'd do something reckless, something brave and stupid and dangerous." "He was right. I know. That's why I've been watching you, waiting for the moment Cordero would make his move." Dante's hand lifted as if to touch her, then dropped. "I made a promise to your brother. I don't break my promises." Maya wanted to believe him, desperately. But trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. "Show me more," she demanded. "Show me proof that Cordero killed Elijah. Not just surveillance footage, actual evidence I can use." Dante held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. "There's something you need to understand first." He returned to the laptop, pulling up files. Cordero didn't act alone. Victor Volkov's face filled the screen. Silver hair, ice blue eyes, a smile that never reached them. Maya stared at the photograph, memorizing every detail. He looked like someone's grandfather, benevolent and harmless, distinguished in his tailored suit and expensive watch. He looked nothing like a man who ordered murders. Old money. Old power. Dante pulled up more files. On paper, he's a philanthropist and businessman. In reality, he runs half the criminal operations in the Midwest, and he does it through proxies like Cordero, maintaining distance while keeping his own hands clean. "You think he ordered Elijah's death?" "I know he did." Dante's voice was flat, certain. He pulled up financial records, communications, a web of connections that made Maya's head spin. "Your brother discovered the link between Cordero and Volkov. He found financial records, encrypted messages, evidence that could bring down Volkov's entire operation. That's why he had to die." Maya studied the documents, her journalist's eye catching inconsistencies, patterns, the careful architecture of corruption. "Where's the evidence now? Where's what Elijah found?" "That's what we need to figure out." Dante closed the laptop, turning to face her fully. "Your brother was paranoid about keeping it safe. He told me he'd hidden it somewhere personal, somewhere only someone who really knew him would think to look." Maya's mind raced through possibilities. Elijah's apartment had been cleared months ago, his office stripped. She'd gone through everything, searching for clues, finding nothing but ordinary possessions. Unless... "The music box," she breathed. Dante's expression sharpened. "What music box?" "He gave it to me for our 18th birthday, vintage. Plays Claire de Lune." Maya's heart raced. 3 days before he died, he came to my apartment, spent 20 minutes just staring at it. I thought he was being sentimental, but he was making sure you'd remember it. Dante was already moving, grabbing his phone. Where is it now? My apartment, which will be watched. Dante scrolled through what looked like surveillance reports. Cordero knows you went off script last night. He'll have people monitoring your building, waiting to see if you surface. Then we create a distraction. We need more than that. Dante's jaw tightened. We need to know exactly who's watching, whether they're FBI or Volkov's people, and we need an exit strategy in case things go wrong. Frustration burned in Maya's chest. So what do we do? Just wait here while the evidence sits in my apartment? We plan, we prepare, and we move when the odds are in our favor. Dante set down his phone, giving her his full attention. I understand your urgency, but rushing in without strategy is how people die. He was right. Maya knew he was right, but every hour they waited was another hour Cordero and Volkov had to cover their tracks, eliminate witnesses, consolidate power. How long? She asked. 24 hours, maybe 48. Dante moved closer. In the meantime, I need to know everything. Everything Cordero told you. Everything he had you do. Any detail could be important. Maya nodded, sinking back onto the couch. For the next 2 hours, she walked Dante through the past 8 months. Cordero's initial approach at the funeral, the training sessions disguised as grief counseling, the carefully constructed cover story, the mission briefings that had led her to last night's gala. She told him about the other agents she'd met, their names, their faces, the casual comments that had seemed innocent at the time, but now felt sinister. She described the equipment Cordero had given her, the locations he'd had her scout, the pattern of meetings that had slowly isolated her from friends and colleagues. Dante listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. He was thorough, Dante said when she finished, building a complete profile on you, learning your patterns, your weaknesses, your motivations, all so he could use you and discard you. I walked right into his trap. You survived. That's what matters. Dante stood, offering his hand. Come on. There's something I want to show you. He led her to a room she hadn't noticed last night, a study lined with filing cabinets and monitors, showing various locations around the city. It looked like a command center, and Maya realized this was how Dante maintained power, not through violence alone, but through information. I've been investigating Cordero and Volkov for 8 months, Dante explained, pulling up files on the computers. Your brother gave me a starting point. I've built on it. Financial records, phone intercepts, witness statements, everything I could gather without tipping them off. Maya leaned closer, scanning documents. They were meticulous, detailed, painting a picture of corruption that went deeper than she'd imagined. Cordero wasn't just one dirty agent. He was part of a network that included prosecutors, judges, police captains. This is insane, she breathed. How has no one noticed? People notice, but Volkov is very good at making problems disappear. Dante pulled up a file marked with red flags. Names filled the screen, dozens of them, each with a date and brief description. Witnesses who died in accidents, journalists who stopped investigating, officers who took early retirement. Maya's eyes caught on one name near the bottom, Elijah Chen, marked differently than the others. Why is Elijah flagged separately? Because he's the only one who got close enough to matter, the only one who found evidence that could actually bring Volkov down. Dante's voice was grim. Everything else I have is circumstantial, suggestive but not definitive. What your brother collected, that's the smoking gun. And it's in my apartment, in a music box, being watched by people who want us dead. Probably. Dante's lips quirked slightly. But I have an idea. The plan was risky, dependent on timing and luck and a dozen variables they couldn't control. Maya hated it immediately. Absolutely not, she said when Dante finished explaining. There's no way I'm letting you walk in there alone. I won't be alone. I'll have backup positioned throughout the building. Dante pointed to the map he'd spread across the desk, showing sight lines and escape routes. But you can't be seen. If Cordero's people spot you, the whole operation is compromised. So I just wait here while you risk your life for my brother's evidence? Yes. no hesitation, no doubt. Because if something goes wrong, you're the only one who can finish this. You're the journalist. You know how to take evidence and turn it into a story that can't be ignored. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was capable of helping, of being more than a liability. But the truth was she had no training for this kind of operation. She'd be a distraction at best, a fatal mistake at worst. "I hate this," she muttered. "Good. Hate keeps you sharp." Dante's hand came to rest on her shoulder briefly. "I'll have you on comms the entire time. You'll hear everything, see everything through body cameras. If something goes wrong..." "Nothing goes wrong. But if it does, you leave. There's a car in the garage downstairs, keys in the ignition. Go bag in the trunk with cash, IDs, everything you need to disappear. I'm not leaving you behind. You will, if necessary." His expression was grave, final. "I'm not letting you die for this, Maya. Your brother made me promise to protect you. That promise stands even if it costs me my life." The words should have sounded melodramatic. Instead, they sounded like a vow, like something Dante meant down to his bones. "When?" Maya asked, her throat tight. "Tonight, 3 a.m. Minimal traffic, minimal witnesses." Dante returned to the map. "My people will create a distraction at the coffee shop across the street. Small fire in the kitchen. Nothing serious, but enough to draw attention. While Cordero's watchers are focused on that, I go in through the service entrance. And if they're watching the service entrance too, then I improvise." Dante's smile was sharp, dangerous. "I'm very good at improvising." The rest of the day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Dante made calls, coordinating with people whose names Maya didn't catch, speaking in code she couldn't decipher. She tried to focus on reviewing files, on memorizing faces and connections, but her mind kept drifting to all the ways tonight could go wrong. Around 6, Dante ordered food, Thai from a place that apparently knew better than to ask questions about deliveries to safe houses. They ate in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. "Tell me about Elijah," Dante said suddenly. "Not the investigation, just him." Maya looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because I want to understand what I'm fighting for, what he died trying to protect." Something in his voice made Maya set down her fork. She thought about her brother, not the investigative journalist, but the person underneath. He was brilliant, funny, had this terrible habit of leaving notes everywhere, on napkins, receipts, random scraps of paper. Our apartment always looked like a tornado hit it. Maya's fingers found Elijah's locket. He was stubborn. Once he decided something was right, nothing could change his mind. "Your father was like that too?" "Dad taught us that truth matters more than comfort, that people in power count on everyone else being too tired or scared to fight back." Maya's voice cracked slightly. "After he died, Elijah became obsessed with making sure no one else's father got buried under lies and corruption. He sounds like someone I would have liked to know better. He would have liked you, too." Maya managed a small smile. "Eventually, after he got over being suspicious of you." They fell silent again, but it was more comfortable now, less like two strangers forced together by circumstance, more like allies finding common ground. As midnight approached, Dante's mood shifted. He became focused, intense, checking equipment with practiced efficiency. Maya watched him prepare, noting the weapons he concealed, the way he moved with lethal grace. This was the dangerous side of him, the part that had built an empire through violence. "You're staring," Dante said without looking up. "I'm trying to reconcile who you are with what you do." "Good luck with that." His tone was wry, self-aware. "I haven't managed it myself yet." At 2:30 a.m., they moved to the surveillance room. Dante fitted Maya with an earpiece, showed her how to monitor the multiple camera feeds that would track his progress. His team was already in position, invisible shadows waiting for his signal. "Last chance to tell me this is a terrible idea," Dante said, checking his watch. "It's a terrible idea," Maya confirmed, "but do it anyway." He smiled, quick and genuine. Then his expression shuddered into something cold and controlled. "If I'm not back in 30 minutes, you leave. No heroics, no rescue attempts. You get out, and you finish what your brother started. Understood?" "Understood." Dante moved toward the door, then paused. He crossed back to Maya, cupped her face in his hands, and pressed a brief, fierce kiss to her forehead. "Stay safe." Then he was gone, and Maya was alone with the monitors and the silence and her hammering heart. The cameras showed Dante exiting the building, moving through shadows with liquid grace. She watched him navigate alleys, avoiding the obvious watchers posted near her apartment building. At exactly 3 a.m., commotion erupted at the coffee shop. Smoke, shouting, the watchers turning to look. Dante slipped through the service entrance like a ghost. "I'm in." His voice came through the earpiece, quiet and controlled. "Heading to your apartment now. Which floor?" "4th, apartment 4C. Maya's hands clenched. "There's a loose panel near the door frame. Spare keys hidden there." She watched through his body camera as he found the key, opened her door, stepped into the familiar chaos of her home. Books everywhere, research papers stacked on every surface. Elijah's leather jacket still draped over the couch where she'd left it 8 months ago. "The music box is on the bookshelf," Maya said. "Left side, second shelf from top." The camera panned across her apartment, and Maya's breath caught. Someone had been here. Papers slightly disturbed, cushions not quite where she'd left them. "Dante," she warned, "someone searched my place." "I see it." His voice remained calm, but she heard the tension beneath. "Getting the box now." The camera focused on the music box, delicate, antique, exactly as she remembered. Dante's hands came into view, carefully lifting it. Then her apartment door exploded inward. "Gun!" Dante's voice was sharp. The camera spun as he dove behind the couch, the music box clutched to his chest. Maya caught glimpses of movement, heard the sharp crack of gunfire. "Dante!" she screamed into the mic, but he couldn't respond. She watched helplessly as the camera showed him returning fire, moving with lethal precision. One attacker went down, then another, but there were more. Too many. "Getting out," Dante grunted. The camera showed him crashing through her window onto the fire escape. Gunfire followed, bullets pinging off metal. He descended with reckless speed, jumped the last 6 feet to the alley below, and ran. Maya's heart was in her throat as she watched him sprint through narrow passages, the music box still clutched in one hand, his weapon in the other. Behind him she heard shouts, running feet. The warehouse in Red Hook smelled like rust and old secrets. Maya stood beside Dante in the cavernous space, watching him set the music box carefully on a metal workbench. His jacket was torn, blood seeping through a makeshift bandage on his left arm. He'd been shot. Just a graze, he'd insisted, but the dark stain spreading across the fabric told a different story. "You need stitches," Maya said, reaching for him. "Later." His focus was entirely on the music box now, examining it with careful hands. "Help me open this." Maya's fingers trembled as she wound the key. Claire de Lune played, tiny and sweet, achingly familiar. She'd listened to this song 1,000 times, never knowing it might hold the key to her brother's final message. "There," Dante said, pointing to an almost invisible seam in the base. "Hidden compartment." Together they worked the catch. The false bottom popped open, revealing a small leather journal. Maya's breath caught as she lifted it out. The leather was worn, familiar. She recognized it as one of Elijah's notebooks, the kind he always carried. She flipped it open, and her vision blurred with tears. Page after page of handwritten notes in Elijah's distinctive scrawl. Payments documented, meetings recorded, names listed. This wasn't just evidence of Cordero's corruption, it was a complete map of Volkov's entire operation. "Jesus," Dante breathed, reading over her shoulder. He documented everything: financial transfers, witness tampering, evidence destruction, murder for hire. This is enough to bring down dozens of people. Maya turned pages, her hands shaking. Elijah had been so thorough, so meticulous. Dates, times, amounts, locations. Everything needed to prove conspiracy, to show the systematic corruption that had cost him his life. "There's more," Dante said, pointing to codes written in the margins. "Bank account numbers, offshore holdings. He tracked the money all the way up the chain." To Volkov. Dante's expression was grim. "This proves he's been running criminal operations for at least 5 years, maybe longer. But it was the last entry that made Maya's blood run cold, written just days before Elijah's death. 'Tonight, I'm meeting with DM. If something happens to me, Maya needs to find him. He's the only one who can finish this. The music box has everything. Bank codes on page 47. Witness locations on page 63. Meeting schedule for Volkov's operation on page 78. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't keep her safe from this world. Tell her I love her more than anything. And tell her to trust DM. He's not the monster everyone thinks. He's trying to find his way back, just like Dad tried before they killed him. Tears streamed down Maya's face as she read her brother's final words. He'd known the risk, had planned for the possibility of his death, and he'd trusted Dante to protect her, to finish what he'd started. He believed in you, Maya whispered, even knowing what you were, what you'd done. Dante's expression was devastated. I didn't deserve his faith. Maybe not, but you have a chance to earn it now. Maya wiped her eyes, forcing herself to focus. Page 78, the meeting schedule. Dante flipped to the indicated page, his expression sharpening. Volkov holds a council meeting every month. All his lieutenants, financial advisors, legal team, everyone who keeps the operation running. When's the next one? 5 days from now. Dante looked up, something dangerous and calculating in his eyes. At the Sinclair Hotel, under cover of a charity auction. Maya's mind raced. We could expose them, bring authorities with evidence in hand, catch everyone in one place with no plausible deniability. Too risky. Volkov will have security everywhere, and we still don't know who we can trust in law enforcement. Dante tapped the journal thoughtfully. We need something more subtle, more devastating. Like what? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. Then he looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. There's something you need to know about your father, about why Elijah's message mentioned him. Maya's stomach clenched. What about my father? 15 years ago, your father brokered a deal with my family, a marriage contract between me and his eldest daughter. Dante's voice was careful, controlled. A symbolic alliance meant to cement peace between our organizations. The words didn't make sense. My sister Naomi died in that fire when I was 12. The contract should have been voided, but legally it transferred to the next living daughter. Dante's dark eyes held hers. You. Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Me. According to the contract, you and I are legally betrothed. It wasn't binding until both parties reached adulthood. It was just symbolic before that. But now, he paused, any assets I possess, any territories I control, become jointly owned upon marriage. Why are you telling me this? Because Volkov knows about the contract. If he kills you before we marry, it becomes void and he can move against me without legal complications. Dante stepped closer. But if we're already married, you become untouchable. Killing you would only strengthen my legal claim to contested territory. The logic was cold, calculated, exactly the kind of strategic thinking that kept people alive in this world. But the idea of marrying someone she barely knew— You want me to marry you, Maya said slowly. Actually marry you. I want to keep you alive. Dante's hand came to rest on her shoulder. The marriage is a tool, a weapon we can use against Volkov. If you're at his council meeting as my wife, he can't touch you without revealing his hand. And after Volkov is taken down? After you're free to leave. I'll sign whatever papers you want to dissolve the marriage. His voice softened. I'm not asking you to tie yourself to me permanently. I'm asking you to trust me enough to use this as strategy. Maya studied his face, searching for deception and finding only raw honesty. This man had killed. She didn't doubt that. Had done terrible things in service to a life built on violence, but he was also the man who'd risked everything tonight to get Elijah's evidence, who'd promised to protect her and kept that promise even when it nearly cost his life. What do you get out of this? She asked. Really, why are you doing all of this? Dante's jaw tightened. My wife, her name was Sophia. She was killed by Volkov's people 3 years ago, targeted because she tried to leave me, to escape this life. His voice was rough with suppressed emotion. The investigation was closed because Volkov owned the lead detective, just like with your father, just like with Elijah. Understanding crashed over Maya. That's why you want to take him down. It's not just about my brother. It's about everyone he's destroyed. Sophia, Elijah, your father, dozens of others whose names fill those files. Dante's grip tightened fractionally. He needs to pay for all of it. Then let's make sure he does. Maya made the choice that would either save her life or destroy it completely. 5 days. That's not much time to plan a wedding. Dante's smile was sharp and beautiful and strangely vulnerable. I can be very efficient when motivated. Then let's do it. Let's get married and burn Volkov's empire to the ground. Relief flooded Dante's expression. He pulled her closer, eliminating the space between them. For a moment, they simply stood there, breathing the same air, balanced on the edge of something dangerous and inevitable. "Thank you," Dante said quietly, "for trusting me, for giving me this chance. Don't make me regret it." "I won't. The promise was absolute. I swear on your brother's memory, I will keep you safe, no matter what it costs." Maya believed him. Against all logic, despite every reason to be cautious, she believed this dangerous man would move heaven and earth to protect her. The question was whether they'd both survive what came next. The next 4 days blurred together in frantic preparation. Dante secured a marriage license through connections Maya didn't ask about. They exchanged vows in a civil ceremony with no witnesses, no celebration. Just a judge who clearly knew better than to ask questions, and 2 people binding themselves together for survival. The ring Dante slid onto her finger was simple gold, elegant in its understatement. But when Maya looked closer, she saw words engraved inside in Italian. "What does it mean?" she asked. "Dalla tenebra alla luce," Dante said quietly. "From darkness into light. It was my grandmother's. She gave it to me before she died, told me to save it for someone who could help me find my way back." The weight of that confession settled over Maya like a benediction. This wasn't just strategy. This was real. They spent the days studying Elijah's journal, memorizing names and faces, building a case that would be irrefutable. Dante taught her about Volkov's organization, who was loyal, who could be turned, who would fight to the death. Maya contributed her journalist's eye for detail, helping craft a narrative that would destroy not just Volkov, but the entire corrupt system that supported him. And at night, they slept in separate rooms in their new safe house, an apartment across town that Dante swore only he knew about, both too wary to truly rest, both hyper-aware of the approaching deadline. On the 5th day, Maya stood before a mirror while Dante's stylist fussed with her gown. Midnight blue silk that clung to her curves, diamonds at her throat that probably cost more than her yearly salary. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged in Dante's world of cultivated danger and lethal elegance. "You're beautiful," Dante said from the doorway. Maya turned to find him in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his tattoos visible at his collar, his dark eyes intense. He looked every inch the powerful man he was, dangerous and magnetic, and somehow, impossibly, hers. "You clean up well yourself," she managed. He crossed to her, his hands settling on her waist. "Are you ready for this?" "No." Maya's honesty made him smile. "But let's do it anyway. If something goes wrong tonight, if Volkov makes a move, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Run. Don't try to fight. Don't try to save me." His grip tightened. "Just run and finish what your brother started. I'm not leaving you. You will if I order you to." His expression was fierce, desperate. "I've lost too many people, Maya. I won't lose you, too." Before she could respond, before she could argue or promise or refuse, Dante kissed her. Not the brief ceremonial touch from the wedding, but something deeper, more desperate. A kiss that tasted like goodbye and promises neither of them could keep. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Let's go," Dante said, his voice rough. "Let's finish this." The Sinclair Hotel blazed with light and money. Maya walked through the entrance on Dante's arm, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. The charity auction was in full swing, Chicago's elites circling each other with champagne and calculated smiles. She'd been to events like this before as a journalist, but never as the main attraction, never as Dante Moretti's wife. Whispers followed their progress across the marble floor. Shock, speculation. The notorious crime boss married to a nobody. The gossip would spread like wildfire, exactly as they'd planned. "He's here," Dante murmured against her temple, the gesture appearing intimate but carrying urgent information. 3 o'clock. Silver hair. Smiling like he owns the world. Maya didn't turn her head. She'd learned that much. Instead, she tilted her face up to Dante's, letting her fingers trace his jaw in a gesture that felt "Put the gun down, Cordero." Dante's voice was ice and promise. His weapon was trained on the agent who'd murdered Elijah, finger resting on the trigger with deadly calm. Around them, chaos continued. Screams, gunfire, the panicked stampede of Chicago's elite trying to escape. But in this small bubble of space behind the overturned table, time seemed to freeze. Cordero's smile was sad, almost apologetic. "I can't do that, Moretti. You know I can't." "You killed my brother," Maya said, her voice shaking with rage. "You stood at his funeral. You held me while I cried, and you murdered him." "I did what was necessary." Cordero's gun didn't waver. Elijah was a good man, a brilliant journalist, but he didn't understand when to stop digging, didn't understand that some truths are too dangerous to expose. Dangerous for who? Dante's tone was lethal. For Volkov? For you? For all the corrupt agents getting rich off blood money? For everyone. Cordero's expression was earnest, like he actually believed what he was saying. "The system works because people like me maintain balance, because we control the chaos. Your brother wanted to tear it all down, expose everything. Do you know what happens when you destroy infrastructure without a plan to replace it?" "Justice happens," Maya spat. "Anarchy happens. Power vacuums happen. Violence happens." Cordero's eyes flicked to the chaos around them. "This, right here, this is what happens when the careful order gets disrupted. Volkov's panicking, making reckless moves, all because you two couldn't leave well enough alone." "You mean all because we wouldn't let you keep murdering innocent people," Dante corrected. Another explosion of gunfire. Closer now. Maya saw figures moving through the darkness, hunting them. "We're running out of time," Cordero said, "so I'm going to make this simple. Give me the evidence Elijah collected, all of it, and I'll let you both walk away. New identities, new lives. You disappear, and this ends." "You'll kill us the moment we hand it over," Maya said. "Probably." Cordero's honesty was chilling. "But at least you'll have a chance. Right now, Volkov has 30 men in this building with orders to kill you both. You think you can fight your way through 30 professional killers?" "I've survived worse odds," Dante said quietly. "Not with her to protect." Cordero's gun shifted slightly, pointing more directly at Maya's heart. "You're good, Moretti. Maybe even good enough to get yourself out. But her? She's a liability. A civilian playing in a world she doesn't understand. How long do you think she'll last when the bullets really start flying?" Maya felt Dante tense beside her, felt the terrible calculus happening in his mind, his life versus hers, survival versus sacrifice. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't even think about it." "Give me the evidence," Cordero pressed. "Save her life. It's what Elijah would have wanted." "Don't you dare use my brother's name," Maya snarled. "Don't you dare pretend you care what he would have wanted." I did care. Something that might have been genuine emotion flickered across Cordero's face. I liked Elijah, respected him. Killing him was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but he forced my hand. By pursuing truth? By being naive enough to think truth matters more than survival. Cordero's voice hardened. Last chance. The evidence or her life. Choose. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Dante smiled, sharp and cold and utterly terrifying. "Option 3! He fired. Not at Cordero, at the chandelier above them. The massive crystal fixture came crashing down between them and the agent, thousands of pounds of glass and metal creating a barrier of chaos. "Run!" Dante grabbed Maya's hand, pulling her toward the stage. Behind them, Cordero was shouting orders. More gunfire erupted, bullets chewing into the floor where they'd been standing seconds before. They hit the stage at full speed, Dante moving with the confidence of someone who'd mapped every exit before arriving. He pulled Maya through heavy curtains, down a narrow corridor that smelled of dust and old costumes. "Service stairs," he said, his grip never loosening. 3 floors down to the parking garage. They burst through a door marked Employees Only and into a concrete stairwell. Maya's heels echoed like gunshots as they descended, each step bringing them closer to escape or closer to a trap. At the second-floor landing, the door above them slammed open. "Keep moving," Dante commanded, but Maya could hear footsteps thundering down after them. They reached the ground floor, crashed through the exit into the parking garage. Dante's black sedan was exactly where he'd left it, engine already running, driver waiting. "Go, go, go!" Dante shoved Maya into the back seat and dove in after her. The driver didn't need to be told twice. Tires screamed as they peeled out of the parking space. Gunfire erupted behind them. The back window shattered, spraying glass across the leather seats. Dante covered Maya with his body as bullets punched through metal and upholstery. "Down!" he commanded, pressing her flat against the seat. The driver, Maya still didn't know his name, drove like he was born to it, weaving through the parking garage at speeds that should have been impossible. They hit the exit ramp, the sedan going airborne for a heart-stopping moment before slamming back to earth. Then they were in the street, merging with late-night traffic, becoming just another car in a city of millions. For several minutes, no one spoke. Maya lay pinned beneath Dante's weight, her heart hammering, adrenaline making her shake. Around them, Chicago slid past the shattered windows, neon and shadow, indifferent to how close she'd just come to dying. Finally, Dante shifted, checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No. You?" "I'm fine." He sat up carefully, glass falling from his shoulders. His tuxedo was destroyed, his face hard with controlled fury. That was too close. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "Somewhere Cordero doesn't know about, somewhere we can regroup." Dante pulled out his phone, scrolling through encrypted messages. His expression darkened. "We have a bigger problem." "Bigger than being hunted by 30 killers? Volkov's going to ground. According to my sources, he's clearing out his offices, moving assets, preparing to disappear." Dante's jaw tightened. "If he vanishes before we can expose him, all of this, everything Elijah died for, it was for nothing." "How long do we have?" "Hours. Maybe less." Dante met her eyes. "We need to move fast. Get the evidence to someone who can act on it immediately. Someone with the power and the integrity to bring Volkov down before he escapes." "Who?" Maya asked. "Cordero's dirty. How many other agents are compromised? How do we know who to trust?" "We don't." Dante's voice was grim. "But I know someone. Federal prosecutor. She's been trying to build a case against organized crime for years. She's clean. I've vetted her thoroughly." "Will she meet with us?" "She will if I tell her what we have." Dante was already dialing. "But we need to be smart about this. Cordero knows we have the evidence now. He'll be monitoring anyone we might try to contact." The driver, still silent, turned down a side street, then another, making sure they weren't followed. Maya watched the city blur past, her mind racing. 8 months ago, she'd been a journalist with a comfortable life and a brother she loved. Now she was married to a mobster, running from corrupt federal agents with evidence that could topple an empire burning a hole in her possession. How had everything gone so wrong? Or maybe it had gone exactly right. Maybe this was always where the path led. Maybe Elijah had known that pursuing truth would cost everything. And maybe he'd decided it was worth it anyway. "Tell me about her," Maya said. The prosecutor. Sarah Mitchell, 43, Harvard Law, spent 15 years at the DOJ before taking a position here. Dante's fingers flew across his phone screen. She's obsessive about building airtight cases, won't move unless she's absolutely certain she can win. "And you think she'll take this case?" "I know she will." Dante showed her his phone, a brief message thread. "She's been investigating Volkov for 2 years. What we have is everything she's been missing, the evidence to connect him directly to criminal operations." Maya studied the messages. They were cautious, coded, but she could read the desperation beneath. Sarah Mitchell wanted Volkov badly, wanted to prove that money and connections couldn't buy immunity from justice. She was exactly like Elijah. "Set up the meeting," Maya said. Dante made the call, speaking in careful code while the driver continued to navigate through Chicago's maze of streets. By the time he hung up, they were pulling into an underground parking structure beneath a nondescript office building. She'll meet us in 20 minutes, Dante said. Her office, top floor, private entrance. Can we trust her? As much as we can trust anyone. Dante's hand found Maya's, squeezing once. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, then we go down fighting. Maya met his eyes. Together. That's what we promised, remember. We survive together or not at all. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Gratitude, maybe, or wonder that someone would choose to stand beside him instead of running. Together, he agreed. They exited the car, moving through the parking structure with practiced caution. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every echo could signal danger. But they made it to the private elevator without incident. As they ascended, Maya felt the weight of what they were about to do. Once they handed over Elijah's evidence, there was no going back. The story would break. Lives would be destroyed, and she and Dante would be at the center of a firestorm that would reshape organized crime prosecution. Elijah had started this fight. Now she would finish it. The elevator doors opened onto a pristine hallway. Soft lighting, expensive art, the kind of law office that catered to powerful clients. A woman waited at the end of the corridor, petite, fierce-eyed, wearing a suit that cost more than Maya's car used to. Sarah Mitchell. Moretti, she said, her tone neutral. Then her gaze shifted to Maya. And you must be Maya Chen. I've been reading your work for years. Your expose on police corruption was brilliant. Thank you. Maya was surprised the prosecutor knew her work. Come inside. Sarah gestured to her office. We don't have much time. I'm assuming Cordero knows you're trying to make contact? He knows, Dante confirmed. Then he'll be moving to intercept. Sarah closed the door behind them, locked it, and drew the blinds. Show me what you have. Dante pulled out Elijah's journal, laying it on her desk like an offering. Complete documentation of Viktor Volkov's criminal organization. Financial records, communications, witness statements, everything needed to prosecute not just him, but everyone in his network. Sarah's eyes widened as she flipped through pages. Her hands trembled slightly. The only sign of emotion in her otherwise controlled demeanor. This is incredible, she breathed. This is everything I've been missing. How did... She stopped, looking up at Maya with sudden understanding. Your brother, Elijah Chen. He compiled this before he died. Before Cordero murdered him, Maya corrected. Sarah's expression hardened. I've suspected Cordero for months. Couldn't prove it. Couldn't get anyone to listen. She closed the journal carefully. With this, I can. How long? Dante asked. How long before you can move on, Volkov? I can have arrest warrants issued within hours. FBI teams mobilized by morning. Sarah was already reaching for her phone. But I need you both to testify. Your statements will be crucial to... The office door exploded inward. Agent Cordero stood in the doorway, weapon drawn, face twisted with fury. Step away from the desk, Sarah. Marcus. Sarah's voice was steady despite the gun pointed at her. You need to stand down. This is over. It's not over until I say it's over. Cordero's eyes flicked to the journal on the desk. That evidence is contaminated, collected by a criminal working with a journalist who has a personal vendetta. No judge will allow it. Try me, Sarah said coldly. I'll make it stick. Not if you're dead. Cordero's gun shifted, pointing at her heart. All three of you. Tragic murder-suicide. Crime boss kills prosecutor and journalist before turning the gun on himself. His smile was manic. It'll be messy, but it'll work. You can't kill everyone, Cordero, Dante said quietly. Eventually, someone will connect the dots. Maybe, but I'll be long gone by then. Cordero's finger tightened on the trigger. Volkov's already arranging my exit. New identity, new life. All I have to do is clean up this mess. Maya saw it happening in slow motion, saw Cordero's finger completing its press, saw the muzzle flash. But Dante was faster. He threw himself in front of Sarah, taking the bullet meant for her. The impact spun him around, blood blooming across his white shirt. No! Maya screamed. Chaos erupted. Sarah dove for the panic button beneath her desk. Alarms shrieked. Dante staggered but remained standing, his own weapon rising with terrible precision. He fired once. Cordero went down, a perfect hole in his forehead, dead before he hit the ground. The building's security burst through the door seconds later, weapons drawn, shouting commands. But the fight was over. Cordero lay dead. Dante was bleeding but alive. And Sarah Mitchell stood with Elijah's journal clutched to her chest like a lifeline. "Medical!" Sarah was shouting into her phone. "Officer down. No, suspect down. And I need an ambulance. Gunshot wound, chest area." Maya rushed to Dante, her hands pressing against the wound in his shoulder. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot and terrifying. "You're not dying on me," she commanded. "You promised. We survive together." "Together," Dante agreed, his voice strained but steady. His hand came up to cover hers. "Always." Emergency medical teams arrived within minutes. They tried to separate Maya from Dante, but she refused to let go, refused to leave his side as they loaded him onto a stretcher. "Ma'am, you need to let us work. I'm his wife," Maya said fiercely. "Where he goes, I go." The EMT looked at her bloody hands, her determined expression, and nodded. "Okay, stay out of our way." As they wheeled Dante toward the elevator, Sarah caught Maya's arm. "The journal. Cordero said it wouldn't hold up in court. He was lying." Maya's voice was hard. "Every page is documented, dated, corroborated. Elijah was too good a journalist to collect sloppy evidence. It'll hold up. Then I'll make sure it does." Sarah's grip tightened. "I'll make sure your brother's death meant something. I promise you that." Maya nodded, then followed the stretcher carrying Dante toward whatever came next. The hospital was sterile and too bright. Maya sat in the surgical waiting room, Elijah's journal clutched in her lap, still covered in Dante's blood. Sarah had wanted to take it as evidence, but Maya had refused until she knew Dante would survive. Some things mattered more than justice. Some promises couldn't be broken. The surgeon finally emerged 4 hours later, looking exhausted but satisfied. "He's stable. Bullet missed the major arteries. He'll need physical therapy, but he should make a full recovery." Relief crashed over Maya so powerfully, her knees buckled. "Can I see him?" "He's in recovery, still unconscious, but you can sit with him." Maya followed the surgeon to a private room where Dante lay connected to machines that beeped softly, monitoring his vitals. His face was pale, his breathing shallow but alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. She pulled a chair beside his bed, took his hand, and finally let herself cry. Not tears of grief or rage, but of relief, of gratitude, of exhaustion. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You survived. Now you're going to wake up and we're going to finish this. We're going to see Volkov burn. We're going to make sure Elijah's death wasn't meaningless." She pressed her lips to his knuckles. "And then we're going to figure out what comes next. For us." Dante's fingers twitched in her grip. Just slightly, but enough. A promise, maybe, or a vow. "Together," the gesture said. "Always." Dante woke to the smell of antiseptic and Maya's perfume. His shoulder screamed in protest as he tried to move, the pain dragging him fully into consciousness. Hospital room, machines beeping, sunlight filtering through blinds that suggested it was late afternoon, and Maya, asleep in the chair beside his bed, her hand still clutching his, dark circles under her eyes that said she'd been there for hours. "You should be resting in an actual bed," he said, his voice rough with disuse. Maya's eyes snapped open. For a moment, she just stared at him like she couldn't believe he was real. Then she was moving, her free hand coming up to cup his face with desperate tenderness. "You're awake." Hard to sleep when someone's squeezing my hand off. But he was smiling, his thumb tracing circles against her palm. "How long was I out?" 14 hours. Maya's voice cracked. "You took a bullet meant for Sarah Mitchell. The surgeon said if it had been 2 inches to the left, but it wasn't." Dante caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I'm fine. We're fine. Cordero's dead." Good. No hesitation, no remorse. One less monster in the world. Maya pulled back slightly, searching his face. "Does it ever bother you? Killing people?" "Yes." His honesty seemed to surprise her. "Every single one, even the ones who deserved it, even Cordero." Dante's jaw tightened. "But I'd do it again in a heartbeat to keep you safe." Before Maya could respond, the door opened. Sarah Mitchell entered, looking like she hadn't slept either, carrying a leather briefcase and an expression of grim satisfaction. "Moretti, good to see you conscious." She set the briefcase on the table. We need to talk. Things are moving fast." "Volkov?" Dante asked. "Arrested 3 hours ago, along with 17 members of his organization." Sarah's smile was sharp. "The evidence your brother collected was even better than I'd hoped. We have enough to prosecute on RICO charges: conspiracy, murder for hire, witness tampering, financial crimes. The list goes on." Maya's breath caught. "You got him." "We got him. Your testimony sealed it." Sarah pulled out documents. "But there's a complication. Volkov's lawyers are claiming the evidence was obtained illegally, that Elijah Chen was working as an unregistered informant without proper FBI authorization." "That's bullshit," Maya said. "Elijah wasn't working for the FBI. He was investigating independently." "I know, but they're arguing that since he brought evidence to Moretti, a known criminal, it's fruit of the poison tree." "Inadmissible." Dante's expression hardened. "What do you need?" "I need your testimony, on record, explaining how Elijah approached you, why he trusted you with the evidence, what you've been doing since his death." Sarah's gaze was steady. "I know what that means. You'll be admitting to crimes, opening yourself to prosecution." "I'll do it." "Dante, wait," Maya started. "I'll do it," he repeated, looking at her. "Your brother died trying to expose corruption. I'm not letting legal technicalities destroy his work. If my testimony puts Volkov away, it's worth it." "You'll go to prison," Maya said, her voice breaking. "Maybe. Or maybe Sarah can negotiate something." Dante's hand tightened on hers. "Either way, it's the right thing to do." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I can work with this. The DOJ has been wanting to make an example of someone in organized crime who cooperates with law enforcement. You testify against Volkov, provide information on other criminal enterprises, and I might be able to negotiate immunity." "Might? No guarantees, but I'll fight for it." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "What you did last night, taking that bullet, stopping Cordero before he could destroy evidence and kill witnesses, that counts for something. I'll make sure the judge knows." "When do you need my testimony?" Dante asked. "Soon. Volkov's arraignment is in 48 hours. I want your deposition recorded before then." Sarah checked her watch. "But first you need to heal. Doctor says you're not going anywhere for at least another day." After Sarah left, Maya sat in silence, her hand still in Dante's, her mind clearly racing. "Talk to me," Dante said quietly. "I'm trying to reconcile what you're willing to sacrifice with what you've done to survive." Maya's eyes met his. "You're ready to go to prison, to lose everything, all for a man you barely knew." "I'm doing it for you." Dante's voice was raw. "Elijah died trying to protect you from this world. The least I can do is make sure his death meant something." "And what about us?" The question came out small, vulnerable. "If you go to prison, then you'll be free, safe, able to build the life you deserve." Dante's smile was sad. "You can publish your story, win your Pulitzer, move on from the monster who dragged you into darkness." "You're not a monster. Maya, you're not." She leaned closer, her forehead resting against his. "A monster wouldn't have protected me at that gala, wouldn't have risked everything to get Elijah's evidence, wouldn't be lying in a hospital bed because he took a bullet meant for someone else. I've killed people, hurt people, built an empire on violence and fear. And you're trying to tear it down." Maya's voice was fierce. "You're trying to be better. That matters." "Does it?" Dante's hand came up to cup her face. "Your brother saw something in me worth saving. I'm still trying to figure out if he was right." "He was." Maya closed the distance between them, kissing him with desperate intensity. "And I'm not giving up on you, prison or not. I'm not walking away." The kiss deepened, becoming something more. A promise, a claim, a vow that transcended everything they'd been through. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante was staring at her with something like wonder. "What?" Maya asked. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The confession seemed to surprise him as much as her. That wasn't supposed to happen. No. Maya's smile was tremulous. It really wasn't. "We were supposed to be using each other, strategy and survival. I know. This complicates everything. I know that too. Maya kissed him again, softer this time. But I don't care. Do you? Dante's answer was to pull her closer, ignoring the protest from his injured shoulder, kissing her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had become quicksand. The next 48 hours blurred together in a haze of legal proceedings and media chaos. News of Volkov's arrest broke like a tidal wave. Every major outlet picked up the story. Chicago crime lord brought down by evidence compiled by murdered journalist. The narrative wrote itself, and Maya found herself at the center of a firestorm. Reporters camped outside the hospital. News vans blocked the street. Everyone wanted the exclusive story of the journalist who'd infiltrated the mob to avenge her brother's death. Sarah Mitchell became Maya's shield, arranging a press conference where Maya could control the narrative. She stood before dozens of cameras, Elijah's journal in her hands, and told the truth, all of it. How Elijah had been investigating corruption, how he'd been murdered by the agent supposed to protect him, how she'd been manipulated, used, nearly killed, and how Dante Moretti, the man everyone expected to be a villain, had been the only one willing to help her pursue justice. My brother believed in truth, Maya said, her voice steady despite the cameras and questions. He believed that no one should be above the law, not billionaires, not federal agents, not anyone. She held up the journal. This evidence represents months of his work, his sacrifice, and I'm going to make sure his death meant something. The press conference exploded into questions, but Sarah ended it quickly, ushering Maya back to the safety of the prosecutor's office. You did well, Sarah said. Public opinion is on your side. That'll help when we go to trial. And Dante's immunity? I'm working on it. Sarah's expression was cautious. The DOJ is interested. But they want more than just his testimony against Volkov. They want information on other organizations, names, operations, locations. He'll give it to you, Maya said with certainty. Will he? Sarah studied her. He's being asked to betray everyone he's ever worked with, to dismantle everything he's built. That's not an easy thing to do. He wants out, has for years. Maya thought of their conversations, the exhaustion she'd seen in Dante's eyes. This is his chance. Sarah nodded slowly. Then let's make sure he gets it. Volkov's arraignment was a spectacle. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal observers, and people whose lives had been touched by his crimes. Maya sat in the front row, watching as the man who'd ordered Elijah's death was led in, wearing an orange jumpsuit and chains. He looked smaller now, less dangerous. But Maya saw the cold calculation still burning in his eyes as he scanned the courtroom. His gaze found her, and he smiled. It was a predator's smile, a promise that even from prison, he could reach her. Maya didn't look away. She held his stare, her hand resting over her heart where Elijah's locket hung beneath her shirt. You didn't win, her expression said. My brother won. Truth won. The judge entered, and everyone stood. The arraignment proceeded with clinical efficiency. Charges read, pleas entered, bail denied. Volkov would remain in custody pending trial. As he was led away, he glanced back once more. This time, his smile was gone, replaced by the dawning realization that his empire was truly over. Dante was discharged from the hospital that afternoon. Maya drove him to a new safe house, a quiet apartment in a neighborhood that didn't ask questions. Sarah had arranged it, along with protection until the trial concluded. How does it feel? Maya asked as they settled into the unfamiliar space. Knowing Volkov's actually going to trial? Surreal. Dante moved carefully, his shoulder still healing. I've spent years watching him operate with impunity, watching him destroy lives and walk away clean. His jaw tightened. Knowing he'll finally face justice. It doesn't feel real. It's real. Maya moved closer, her hands gentle as she helped him remove his jacket. And you made it happen. You and Elijah. Your brother did the hard work. I just finished what he started. You did more than that. Maya's fingers traced the edge of his bandage. You chose justice over survival, over everything you've built. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Courage, Maya repeated firmly. She kissed him softly. And I'm proud of you. Dante's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer despite the pull on his stitches. What happens now, after the trial? I don't know. Maya's honesty felt vulnerable. I've been so focused on getting justice for Elijah, I haven't thought past it. Think now. Dante's dark eyes searched hers. What do you want, Maya? Really want? She thought about her old life, the journalism career, the apartment she'd abandoned, the comfortable certainty of who she'd been before grief had carved her hollow. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, stronger, harder, more honest about the world's brutal realities, but also more open to unexpected connections, to dangerous men who turned out to have heroes hiding beneath the monster masks. I want to write Elijah's story, she said slowly. The real story, not just the evidence he collected, but who he was, why he fought so hard for truth. She paused. And I want to write about you. Me? The man who everyone expected to be a villain, who turned out to be something more complicated. Maya's smile was soft. The man who kept his promise to a dead journalist he barely knew, who sacrificed everything to protect that journalist's sister. That's a dangerous story to write. All the best ones are. Maya kissed him again. And after? After the book is published and the trials are over and the media circus moves on? After. Dante's voice dropped, becoming intimate. I was hoping you'd come find me, wherever I end up. Prison or witness protection or some quiet place where men like me try to build new lives. That's a long time to wait. I've got time. His thumb traced her lower lip. Question is, will you still want this when the adrenaline fades, when you remember I'm a killer with blood on his hands? Maya pulled back enough to meet his eyes fully. You're more than your worst actions, more than your crimes. And yes, I'll still want this. Want you. Even if I'm in prison? Even then. The vow was absolute. We survived together, remember. That's what we promised. Together, Dante agreed, pulling her close again. They stayed like that as the sun set outside, two people who'd found unexpected salvation in each other's darkness, two people who'd learned that sometimes love grew in the most unlikely places, between grief and rage, between violence and redemption, between a journalist seeking truth and a criminal trying to find his way back to light. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. News of Volkov's arrest was still dominating headlines, and somewhere prosecutors were building the case that would reshape organized crime prosecution for a generation. But inside this quiet apartment, Maya and Dante simply existed together, healing, planning, hoping that the future they were building would be worth everything they'd sacrificed to reach it. Maya? Dante said quietly. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For believing I could be more than a monster. His voice was raw with emotion. For giving me a reason to try. Maya's answer was to kiss him again, soft and lingering and full of promise, because the truth was he'd given her something too, a way forward through grief, a partner in pursuing justice, and maybe, impossibly, a chance at something that looked like love. The trials would come, the consequences would follow, and they'd face it all together, from darkness into light. Always. 6 months later. Maya stood at the window of a villa overlooking the Amalfi Coast, watching the Mediterranean turn gold beneath the setting sun. The view should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like staring at a question mark, waiting for an answer that might never come. The trial had lasted 3 months. Volkov convicted on all counts, life in prison without possibility of parole. 17 members of his organization also sentenced, and Agent Cordero officially branded as corrupt, his legacy destroyed. Justice, finally, for Elijah. Maya had written the story, published it as a 6-part investigative series that won every major journalism award. Book deals followed, speaking engagements, a documentary in development. Everything she'd ever wanted professionally was suddenly within reach. But the person she wanted most was still an ocean away. Dante had testified as promised, providing information that dismantled 3 major criminal organizations. In exchange, the DOJ had offered him witness protection, a new identity, a new life, freedom from prosecution. He'd taken it, disappeared into a system designed to make people vanish, and Maya had let him go because she knew he needed time to figure out who he was without the violence, without the empire, without the weight of all the lives he'd taken. But 6 months felt like an eternity. "Still staring at the water like it holds answers?" a voice said behind her. Maya turned to find Sarah Mitchell standing in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of wine and wearing a knowing smile. "I'm thinking," Maya said. "You're pining." Sarah crossed the terrace, handing her a glass. "There's a difference. I'm not pining. You flew to Italy to clear your head and rented a villa 3 miles from where Dante Moretti told you he'd be if he ever got out." Sarah's eyebrow arched. "That's the definition of pining." Maya took a sip of wine instead of responding. Sarah was right, of course. She'd been circling this moment for weeks, working up the courage to either knock on Dante's door or walk away for good. "Have you talked to him?" Sarah asked. "No. The whole point of witness protection is he's not in witness protection anymore." Sarah's voice was gentle. "Didn't you know? He completed the program 3 months ago, fulfilled all his obligations to the DOJ. He's a free man." Maya's heart stopped. 3 months? He didn't reach out? "No." The word came out hollow. "Nothing." Sarah was quiet for a moment, studying her. "Maybe he's waiting for you to decide what you want. You told him to figure out who he was without the violence. Maybe he's giving you the same space, to figure out who you are without the grief and rage driving you. And if I decide I want him, then stop staring at the ocean and go find out if he wants you back." Sarah clinked her glass against Maya's. "Worst case scenario, you get closure. Best case, well, you didn't rent this villa by accident." Maya stood outside Dante's villa as the sun dipped below the horizon. The address had taken weeks to find. Sarah had helped, pulling strings Maya didn't ask about. The villa was smaller than she'd expected. Golden stone and terracotta tiles, gardens bursting with lemon trees and jasmine. It looked like a home, not a hiding place. Her hand trembled as she raised it to knock. Before her knuckles could connect, the door opened. Dante stood there, backlit by warm interior light, wearing simple linen pants and a white shirt. He looked different. Lighter somehow, the weight of his former life stripped away. His tattoos were visible, winding down his arms like stories he no longer had to hide. But his eyes, dark and intense, and holding hers with desperate relief, were exactly the same. Maya. Her name on his lips was prayer and promise combined. She didn't speak, couldn't. She just crossed the space between them and threw herself into his arms. Dante caught her, lifting her, holding her like she was the answer to every question he'd been asking for 6 months. "You came," he breathed against her hair. "Always." Maya pulled back just enough to see his face. "I'm sorry it took so long. I needed time, I know." His smile was soft, understanding. "I needed it too." "Sarah said you completed the program 3 months ago. Why didn't you call?" "Because I promised myself I wouldn't ask you to choose until I knew who I was, without everything else." Dante's hand came up to cup her face. "I needed to be sure I could offer you something real. Not just survival or strategy, or 2 broken people clinging to each other in the dark." "And?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Who are you?" "Someone trying very hard to be good." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "Someone who grows olive trees and learns Italian from village grandmothers. Someone who wakes up every morning and chooses not to be the monster anymore." "Someone I could love," Maya finished. Dante's expression cracked. "Someone who already loves you, has loved you since you stood in that ballroom in a borrowed dress, trying to be brave." Maya kissed him then, soft and lingering, tasting like salt and wine, and 6 months of longing finally answered. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante was staring at her with wonder. "Come inside," he said. "Let me show you what I've built." The villa was exactly as Maya had imagined, and nothing she'd expected. Simple furniture, walls lined with books, some hers, she noticed, her exposé on Volkov's organization prominently displayed, a kitchen that smelled of lemons and fresh bread. Everything spoke of someone trying to build a life instead of an empire. "It's beautiful," Maya said. "It's home." Dante moved to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients with practiced ease. "Have you eaten? I was just about to make dinner." "You cook now?" I do a lot of things now." His smile was self-deprecating. "Turns out, when you're not running a criminal organization, you have time for hobbies." Maya watched him work, chopping vegetables, boiling water for pasta, moving through the space with the same lethal grace, but directed at something gentle, creating instead of destroying. "What else have you been doing?" she asked. "Reading, a lot, trying to understand the world I spent years insulating myself from." Dante pulled out a chair for her at the small table. "Walking. The coastline here is incredible. And thinking. Too much thinking." "About what?" "About whether I deserve any of this. The freedom, the peace. You." His voice dropped. "Whether a man with blood on his hands gets to have a happy ending." "And what did you decide?" "That I don't know." Dante's honesty was stark. "But I'm willing to try, to be better, to spend whatever time I have left trying to balance the scales." "How do you balance scales like yours?" Maya asked gently. "I don't know if I can." He set a plate of pasta in front of her, simple but perfect. "But I've been working with Sarah, quietly, providing information on other criminal organizations, helping her build cases. It's not redemption, but it's something." "It's everything," Maya corrected. "You're using what you know to prevent the violence you used to perpetrate. That matters." They ate in comfortable silence, both processing the surreal reality of sitting together in an Italian villa after everything they'd survived. "Tell me about the book," Dante said finally. "I read the exposé. It was brilliant." "The book is more personal, about Elijah, about who he was beneath the investigation." Maya paused. "And about you." "Me? The man who everyone expected to be a villain, who turned out to be capable of sacrifice and honor and choosing justice over survival." Her eyes met his. "I changed your name, obviously, but anyone who knows the story will recognize you." "And how did you portray me?" "Honestly?" Maya reached across the table, taking his hand. "As someone complicated, who did terrible things but tried to be better when given the chance, who kept a promise to a dead man and saved his sister's life." Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he squeezed her hand. "When's it published?" 3 months. I wanted to finish it here, in Italy, where the story ends." "Does it end here?" "That depends." Maya's heart hammered. "On what you want, what we both want." Dante stood, pulling her up with him, his hands framing her face with the gentleness that still surprised her. "I want you," he said simply, "however you'll have me, for however long you'll stay. I want to wake up next to you and make you breakfast and show you the village market where the old women sell the most incredible tomatoes." Maya laughed through sudden tears. "That's very specific." "I want to be boring with you." Dante's voice was fierce. "I want days that don't involve gunfire or corruption or running for our lives. I want to argue about whether to plant basil or oregano in the garden. I want to grow old watching the sunset over the Mediterranean." "Just that? Just that?" He kissed her softly. "Just you and me and a quiet life. Is that enough?" Maya thought about her old life, the journalism career waiting in New York, the apartment she'd never returned to. The comfortable certainty of who she'd been before Elijah's death had changed everything. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, stronger, scarred, but also more open to unexpected love, to dangerous men who turned out to have heroes hiding beneath the monster masks. "It's more than enough," she said. "It's everything." Dante's smile was transformative. He lifted her, spinning her around as she laughed, then carried her toward the bedroom with single-minded determination. "Where are we going?" "To start our boring life together." His voice was rough with emotion and desire. "Right now." Maya woke to sunlight and the smell of lemons. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she woke without the crushing weight of grief, without the driving need for vengeance, without the fear that had become her constant companion. She woke simply to morning, and it was beautiful. Dante's side of the bed was warm but empty. She found him on the terrace, coffee in hand, staring out at the morning bright sea. Shirtless, tattoos on full display, hair mussed from sleep. He looked nothing like the controlled, dangerous man she'd met at that Chicago gala. He looked human, real, hers. "Buongiorno," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He turned, his smile soft and unguarded. "You're awake. I was trying to let you sleep." "I've slept enough." Maya pressed a kiss between his shoulder blades. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am." Dante's hand covered hers where it rested against his chest. "That you came, that you're here, that somehow, against every odd, we made it." "We did." Maya moved around to face him. "From that ballroom to here. We survived." "More than survived." Dante set down his coffee, his hands coming to rest on her hips. "We found something I didn't think people like me got to have." "What's that?" "Peace, hope, a future that doesn't involve constantly looking over my shoulder." His voice dropped. "You." Maya kissed him, soft and lingering, tasting coffee and promise. "So, what do we do today?" she asked against his lips. "Whatever we want." Dante's smile was brilliant, unguarded. "That's the best part. No missions, no danger, just time. As much time as we want." They spent the morning exploring the villa's grounds, olive groves and herb gardens and hidden corners that invited lingering. Dante showed her how he'd been learning to tend the land, to grow things instead of destroying them. His hands, so skilled at violence, were equally skilled at coaxing life from soil. In the afternoon, they drove to the village market. Dante haggled with vendors in fluent Italian, laughed with the elderly shopkeeper who clearly adored him, demonstrated the ordinary life he'd been building, while Maya had been finishing her book. "You're staring," he said, catching her watching. "I'm seeing you," Maya corrected. "Really seeing you, maybe for the first time." "And what do you see?" "Someone who kept his promise, someone who chose light over darkness." She took his hand. "Someone I love." The words hung between them, simple and true and terrifying in their finality. "I love you too," Dante said, "more than I thought I was capable of loving anything." They returned to the villa as the sun began its descent, cooking dinner together with ingredients from the market, fresh pasta and vegetables and wine from the local vineyard. They ate on the terrace as the sky turned impossible colors, gold and pink and deepening purple. "Tell me something," Dante said as they lingered over the last of the wine. "Something I don't know about you." Maya thought for a moment. "I'm afraid." "Of what?" "That this is too good, that something will happen to take it away." Her voice dropped. "That I'll wake up and realize it was all a dream." Dante reached across the table, taking her hand. "It's real. I'm real. This—" He gestured to the villa, the view, the quiet evening. "Is real. Promise?" "I promise." He pulled her to her feet, drawing her close. "And I promise that I'll spend every day proving it, showing you that we earned this, that we deserve happiness after everything we survived." Maya rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong and alive. "From darkness into light," she whispered, touching the ring on her finger, the one Dante's grandmother had saved for someone who could help him find his way back. "From darkness into light," Dante agreed. "Together. Always." They stood there as the stars emerged, two people who'd found unexpected salvation in each other's arms, two people who'd learned that sometimes love grew in the most unlikely places, between grief and rage, between violence and redemption, between a journalist seeking truth and a criminal trying to find his way back to light. The past would always be there. The scars would remain. Elijah's absence would continue to ache in quiet moments, but they'd survived. They'd found justice, and now, impossibly, they'd found peace. In a villa overlooking the sea, where lemon trees bloomed and jasmine perfumed the air, Maya Chen and Dante Moretti built the life neither had thought possible. Boring days filled with market trips and garden work, quiet evenings watching the sunset, mornings waking to the smell of coffee and the promise of another day together. It wasn't the ending Maya had expected when she'd walked into that Chicago ballroom in a borrowed dress, hunting for her brother's killer. It was better.